Ayy, look, yeah, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the New Media Podcast. I'm your host, Ja. We hope you enjoyed the last episode because, as always, today's going to be an even better episode. I got the whole crew with me. Everybody's in the house today, but today it's not like any other day. Like I've always mentioned, whenever we got a special guest, it always has that different type of feeling, that different type of vibe. So, of course, I'm not going to do too much speaking, and I'm going to allow himself to introduce himself to you guys. So, without further ado, the floor is yours, man.
Hey, man, glad to be a part of the crew for today. My name is Mustafa. They call me Mini Meek. And, I'm a diehard Nuggets fan, so we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Well, welcome to the show, man. I think this was very, very long overdue, man. But
very long overdue.
Yeah, but we're glad to have you here. We got a lot to get into today. We had a lot of hoops come to a close. Second round of the NBA playoffs has officially been wrapped up. So now we're going to, of course, in today's episode, we'll talk about the conference finals. We'll give a little bit of a preview there and our predictions. We'll then talk about the Philadelphia 76ers, what's next for them in their future. Whether or not we believe Monty Williams deserved to be fired after that Game 6 loss to the Denver Nuggets at home in blowout fashion. The Golden State Warriors and whether or not it's the end of their dynasty run. And then we'll go ahead and close out with Ja Morant getting suspended again from the league. So before we jump into all these topics today, temperature check, how's everybody doing?
Man, we in the conference finals with it. We in the conference finals, man. I'm ready to talk about it.
Not many people can say that. Yeah, the last 4 team standings. Not many people can say that.
Not many people can say that, man. Especially a guy with a red hat, and you can't say it.
Yeah, he can't really talk.
He's on my side right now, but so
man, we don't do that.
He can't really talk about his Bulls, bro.
I gotta rock with a new team, man. I gotta find a new team to root for the next couple of weeks. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. We'll start off with the Philadelphia 76ers. The last time we spoke about these guys had a 3-2 commanding lead going into Philadelphia at their home floor. But unfortunately, they weren't able to close out the deal there. I believe they lost that game 95-86. And then they ended up playing a Game 7 in Boston, and they ended up getting smoked off the floor 112-88. So now, of course, we talked about Joel Embiid and we talked about James Harden often a lot on this podcast. And unfortunately, those guys' season is officially cut short, and they will not be making the conference finals. So with that being said, what's next for the Philadelphia 76ers? Where do they go from here in order to kind of get over the hump and, take that next step?
They're not getting over the hump, man. It's impossible. Like, it's a common denominator, man. If this team, has not gotten past the conference finals since AI, we're barely kids the last time this team made it to conference finals, and they still didn't end up doing it. I think you just have to restructure the roster completely. You got to retool. You got to do something. I'm not gonna blame Doc Rivers heavily on this series. I think there's not much he could have done. Like, if your stars get outplayed by the other team's stars, you can't really do much in that scenario. But that's somewhere that you start. You get rid of the coaching. James Harden, I doubt he's going to be back here in Philadelphia. I really, really doubt it. I think he's going to go back to Houston. Where there's smoke, there's fire. All season long, we've been hearing about these reports about him going to Houston. And, there's some interest apparently in the Phoenix Sun. But I think he really goes back to Philadelphia. He goes back to Houston. I think that's the team that he always envisioned going back to if he never won a championship. He left there to try to win one, unsuccessful. And BD's going to be there. Let's be honest. He's going to be there. I think they end up packaging Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris and ship them off. I think that's their idea. But if you're a Philadelphia fan, I think this was heartbreaking because you have nothing to look forward to next season. I mean, if Joel Embiid goes for MVP again, is that really fun for you? Where's the enjoyment in that? So I think this team has a lot of question marks. I think they're going to end up breaking apart, and Embiid's going to be the last man standing. So.
That's very interesting. For one, he's never getting MVP again. I'll tell you that right now. He won MVP this season for Sympathy MVP. The whole world knows that.
Come on, man. Come on, fam. Come on. Don't do that. Why y'all doing that now, though?
It's a Sympathy MVP. Everyone knows it. It was the media narrative. They don't want to give it to Jokic no more. They're blaming Jokic about not having playoff success. And then next thing you know, Embiid gets bounced out the second round and he choked. So I just don't think he's getting it again.
I doubt he's going to get an MVP again. it's gonna be the same thing like what happened with Giannis after the bubble, where like he got sent off the floor by Miami, and then nobody even considered him for that next year MVP, even though he had a good argument for it. So of course I don't think
Yeah.
Embiid's gonna win MVP again, but it's tough.
Yeah, I would say the next year's MVP favorite is probably Giannis. But to go back to what you were saying, Philadelphia 76ers, what they could do, I don't know if they could trade Maxey because he's definitely their future. I'll give him that. But Tobias Harris, that guy has the worst contract in the NBA, like by far the worst contract. That guy is like he's trash. He's trash. So I don't know what you could get for him. He makes like 35 million a year. So I don't know what you get with that guy. But
I think like a team like Utah, or like one of those teams that just want to pick up like cheap wins, like
Jordan
that'll take.
Clarkson.
Yeah, like like those. I think he has what 1 year left on his contract.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't
one of
think
those.
he has much left.
So yeah, he probably has a year left. I think one of those teams would take an expiring contract, to be honest. But still, though, it's like
Yeah,
how much value are you gonna get?
Yeah, Jordan Clarkson, he's not moving the needle for the 76ers. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, Joel Embiid and James Harden, they didn't get the job done. But from where they go from here is clearly they have to make a move. And whoever's running, I'm not sure if Elton Brand's still running things over there, but that
I'm
guy,
almost 100% sure he is.
he's still running it. Yeah, he had to go like 3 years ago. That guy is trash. Like,
Didn't they bring in Daryl Morey?
Oh,
Daryl
you're
Morey.
right.
They did. I mean, he brought
I
Daryl
swear-
Morey came
I
in. He
swear-
brought everybody
they
from
brought
Houston
in-
with
they
him.
brought in-
I swear, Elton Brand is still there though. Like
I don't know if he's still
Fact
there.
check
That guy has to go. They chose Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler. That's embarrassing. But one thing I have to mention is Ben Simmons. I think he had the last laugh for this organization because
he's going to China. What do you mean he has a last?
okay, but like listen, he like for Ben Simmons he had the last laugh because everyone blamed him in Philly, and then for him to leave like 2 years now, they still haven't gone past second round with him or without him. So that just like proves that everything Joel Embiid, all those sneak disses he was giving him, like when he was there and when he left, like he still did nothing with him or without him. So, yeah,
I think he is still general manager, by the way, Elton Brand.
Yes, Elton Brand is general manager. Daryl Morey is president of basketball operations.
There you go.
Yeah, no, Elton Brand should be fired. Like he should have been fired 2 years ago. That guy's absolute garbage. But as I was saying, yeah, Ben Simmons got the last laugh. Joel Embiid he's just not a playoff performer. So where they go from here is clearly they have to build around him. So if that's panicking and trading Maxey, that's what they're gonna do. Maybe get Damian Lillard or something like that. I'm not sure what that will do either because I don't really believe in Damian Lillard in the playoffs either.
Okay, come on, like at least Damon Embiid gives you a better chance though, a way better chance.
But losing Harden in free agency and then trading Maxey and Tobias for Dame, I don't know what I'll get you, but
and get you much.
That's tough. You still got PJ Tucker on the team with him. You Dame, PJ Tucker, and Embiid, man.
yeah.
Something at least, but
it's a good leader right there, man. PJ Tucker.
No, I respect PJ, but he didn't go outside in that game 7. I respect PJ.
Oh yeah, he had a better game 7 than Joel Embiid.
Than both of them, bro.
than both of them.
I mean, that's pretty embarrassing.
All right.
But yeah, man. For me, man, Philadelphia, man, failed operation. James Harden's gone, Embiid yet again. Not showing up in the playoffs, second round again, and him underperforming, him not being there for a couple of games in the series. They could have ended it game 6. Game 7 came by. Third quarter was, 55-55 at a point in time, and out of nowhere, they're down 30. So to me, they didn't come into that game 7 with heart, and guys like Maxey, guys like Tobias Harris, now they might have to take the boot from the team just to rebuild. Obviously, Tobias Harris, shittiest contract in the book. He's getting 185 to basically play like John Collins, man. Give you 5 points, 5 rebounds, a couple games, might give you 15, here and there, but doesn't really add to the team much. And he's a cone on defense. And then Embiid, man, you got your MVP this year, but they ain't never giving you another one. I promise you. After this playoff performance, the way you cry for your MVP, and then the post press conference, him coming out trolling, basically saying, "Hey, man, it's what did Giannis say a couple weeks ago?
It's not failure, it's steps to success.
It's not failure, steps to success." So, and, him trolling, coming out saying that, to me, you're not getting another MVP, but Philadelphia, James Harden's about to walk, and guys like PJ Tucker and Tobias Harris, they're about to get the boot from the team. Hopefully Maxey doesn't, because, he's a young star. He could take the next step with the team, but who knows what happens. And Doc Rivers, I don't know how much game sevens that this guy has choked so far,
It's
or
10. It's
lost
10, by the way.
10 at the point.
10.
Yeah, him. I feel like it's time. It's time to go to the reporting booth and start reporting instead of being a coach. Go join Mark Jackson and Van Gundy instead of being a coach, because this guy, man, he's living off that 2008 finals ring against the Lakers. Other than that, there's not much done in history for him. There's a bunch of choke jobs, there's a bunch of 3-1 blown leads, and not another finals appearance. So for me, it's a lot going on in Philadelphia, but they got to blow it up.
I want to start off by first saying that Joel Embiid is the only MVP to not make it to the conference finals. So once we put that into perspective, we've had a lot of MVPs come and go in our league, and only one guy in particular has not gone past the second round. But to get back to this series overall, before I talk about the future of the Philadelphia 76ers, I mean, in game 6, Jason Tatum has the worst game of his career, and these guys aren't able to capitalize at home. So there's just no way in my right mind where I'm sitting here overthinking, like the Sixers are about to go into Boston for a third time and beat him again. It just wasn't possible. It wasn't going to work like that. So I knew they had no chance in game 7. And I mean, it took Jason Tatum to break the game 7 record that Steph Curry set 2 weeks ago by dropping 51 points. It's kind of tough to beat a team when their best players going off like that. But in that situation, Joel Embiid is supposed to be matching that. Not necessarily saying he's supposed to be dropping 50, but he's supposed to be putting up his numbers, 30 points, and James Harden's supposed to be coming along with him. But for James Harden, this is something I've always expected from him come postseason time. A lot of people come into the postseason with the expectation of James Harden is going to perform. I don't come into the postseason with that expectation for him, because I know this guy somehow, some way is going to choke. We've seen it year after year after year. So this is kind of like just rinse and repeat. Is old news. But for Joel Embiid to come out in this game 7, arguably one of the biggest games of his career, and have a performance like that, especially in a year where he won MVP, it's a bit shocking. It's a bit embarrassing. But for the Philadelphia 76ers, I think it's the right move that should happen for them. Should be a move for a superstar. They're going to have to somehow, some way package Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, and somehow, some way get a superstar that doesn't necessarily want to be wherever they're at right now. That could be Damian Lillard. That could be somebody else. I don't think bringing James Harden back into the fold would be any good for this franchise. He doesn't necessarily provide anything for you offensively, outside of his playmaking. But when you have a guy like Joel Embiid and you pair him up with a guy like James Harden, like I've always said, you're not necessarily bringing him to kind of run the show for you. Running the show for you is a plus. But in the postseason, you got to be able to produce like some scoring output in the box score when you're looking at the end of the game. Like James Harden's supposed to be up there with about 25, 26 points, with Joel Embiid's 30, 34, 35. But unfortunately, we got a couple games of James Harden going off in this series. But unfortunately, the stinkers were just so bad to the point where it just wasn't enough for the Philadelphia 76ers to overcome. But let's go ahead and get into this quote a little bit. Post game, they caught. I wouldn't necessarily caught, but Joel Embiid in the post-game presser said that me and James, we just can't win alone. That's why basketball is played 5-on-5. I know this quote is taken out of context a little bit when you look at the whole interview, but this quote alone is kind of what stood out the most from this post-game conference, especially in the fashion that they just lost Game 7, and where him and James Harden had one of the worst games of their career. So what are our thoughts on this?
I mean, the whole quote, he said this: we got an unfinished job, we haven't won anything, and I think we got the chance to win. Obviously, going to 7 games and having a chance to close it out at home, which we didn't do, I still believe we got the chance, and so on and so forth. He said, but it's going to take more than us. We got to look at ourselves. I got to be better, and I will be better. But that's what I'm focused on. All of us, we got to come back and find ways to just keep improving and help the team. We can't win alone. I can't win alone. Me and James, we just can't win alone. That's why basketball's played 5-on-5. So we just need everybody to keep trying to find ways to get better, and we'll be fine. I think that quote is fine. He's admitting that he has to be better, and James has to be better, and the whole team has to be better. Of course, he's gonna say me and James. Those are the 2 stars. That's what everybody's gonna be looking at. But it doesn't just take them 2. But at the end of the day, I do think in some way it is escaping by some accountability. I think the quote is egregious for people to just go ahead and take it out of context. I think what Embiid is saying is pretty clear that me and James have to be better. but it's not going to take us solely. And some of that is true. There is some roster deficiencies in this Philadelphia team, but at the end of the day, your two stars have to show up, and they both have to be better. So, this squad, I didn't have a big problem with it. I think Embiid is on the right track, but the rest of the post conference, what Big H was talking about, the guy trolling with saying, it's not failure, it's success. That's my problem, like with stuff with that. But with this squad, I don't have a big issue with.
Yeah, I have a big issue with this quote. So to start off, basically, I feel like he needs to take more accountability. Like, stop mentioning the other players on the team saying it's a 5-on-5 game. I need him to take more accountability on himself. There's only been 2 instances of the NBA scoring leader making the playoffs and being outside of the top 10 points per game. Joel Embiid in 2022 and Joel Embiid in 2023. So he needs to stop mentioning it's a 5-on-5 game. To look in the mirror. The series loss is like at least 75% on him. Like, he's a playoff dropper. I don't know what he does in the playoffs. I could go in and say, so Joel Embiid, he has 5 playoff series won in his career, right? I'm gonna give you guys the top 4 minutes played in each series that he played against. So in 2018, he played the Miami Heat. The 4 players with the most minutes played in the Miami Heat that series were James Johnson, Goran Dragic, Kelly Olynyk, and Josh Richardson. In 2019, he played the Brooklyn Nets. The 4 most minutes played on that team were Joe Harris, D'Angelo Russell, Karis LeVert, and Spencer Dinwiddie. In 2021, it was Bradley Beal, Westbrook, Rui Hachimura, and Davis Bertans. And Raptors 2022 was Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, and Gary Trent. And in 2023, the Nets, it was Spencer Dinwiddie, Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson, and Royce O'Neal. So Joel Embiid needs to stop saying that's a 5-on-5 game, just take more responsibility. This guy is not a playoff performer. And from those names I just listed, the best player he's ever beaten in the playoffs is Bradley Beal. That's just flat out embarrassing. So he needs to take more accountability on himself and just get better.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, he should come out, take more accountability, and talk about his performances in the series and the games that they lost and why he could have helped or could have done better in those games. But I mean, the quote, is gonna get taken out of context. People are gonna pick apart the quote and single out single parts of it to talk about their agendas and to fulfill what they want to think about him and stuff like that. So I mean, but at the same time, to me, it's a little accountability on his side. Don't mention 5-on-5. Don't mention, hey, me and James. Just on your part, what could you have done better, and what could you do better later on, and if you guys get in this position again. So a little more accountability.
I just think it's hilarious. He's in a game where obviously the quote is taken out of context, but it's still the quote it is what it is. He's talking about me and James. I don't care if it's him and James are the 2 stars on the Philadelphia 76ers. Those are the 2 players that played the worst in a game 7 with the biggest game of the season. So, him being the leader of this team, him going through everything he went through this past season, and going back to those couple of years where he was running up for MVP, and then this year he finally cracked it. He was able to achieve that trophy that he's been chasing for so long, and then to come out with with a performance like this, where in the series that they really needed him to kind of step up and be that guy. And so I think you guys hit it around the head. Accountability is key, and I think that's one thing that Joel Embiid lacks. I feel like he can do a lot better. He could definitely do a lot more on the floor, but when he's out there settling for jumpers, thinking he's a shooting guard and things like that, he has to learn how to play his game, which is abusing guys like Al Horford that are on him. You can be getting double teamed, but then that just leaves another guy open, and you trust your playmakers, you trust your shooters around him to kind of hit shots. And so, and then him going out there and trolling Giannis with that quote, it's just putting the nail in the coffin at that point. It's like what are you doing up there with a huge smile on your face after the that game 7 performance you just put out there, on the brightest lights, where your opponent, the best player on the opposite team, put up 51 points on you. You pretty much got attacked consistently. That's one thing we didn't even talk about. Him getting attacked by Jason Tatum in those high pick and rolls all game long. Jason Tatum just knew that he can get whatever he wants. He can get to wherever he wanted on the floor if Joel Embiid was guarding him. And so it's gonna be a long offseason for the Philadelphia 76ers. I think within the coming days, Doc Rivers will be fired. Do I believe he deserves to be fired after this? Not necessarily, because I wouldn't put the blame on him for this series. But as always, the coaches are always the first ones to go, and then next thing you know, the players will kind of shift however they may be. But long off season for the Philadelphia 76ers, and I'm sure we'll be right here to talk about it. But let's go ahead and move off of them and talk about something a little bit more bright. And that's the Phoenix Suns and their whole situation. So in Game 6 of that series, in Game 5, the Denver Nuggets were able to win that game, go up 3-2 in the series. Going back to Phoenix for Game 6 on the Phoenix Suns home floor, another embarrassing loss for the Phoenix Suns in an elimination game. The Nuggets win that game 125-100. And a couple of days after that, a couple of days removed from that Game 6 loss, Monty Williams gets fired. So, do we believe that Monty Williams deserved to be fired?
I think in the NBA now, there's such a short leash for coaches now. Like I feel like in the past, coaches used to get like 3, 4, even maybe 5 years. Now it's like you're given about 2 year span, and that's it. I mean, when you look at it from this sense, Monty Williams, he's been to the finals. They won 60+ games, and then again this year, in the semifinals. I think it's a bit of like a knee jerk reaction. I think they wanted to scapegoat someone. This isn't protecting Monty Williams. I do think that there is some clear issues with his rotations and guys that he chooses to play. I mean, he basically iced out Torrey Craig and a bunch of guys that he should have been playing early on in the playoffs. And then again, I feel like his rotations and minutes, even the game where KD was a game 6 where KD literally sat for 4 minutes, and I think the Nuggets went on like a 19-0 run when Biyombo came in. There's a combination of Monty Williams' rotations and the clear roster construction issues that I think he's being blamed for something that I don't think is his fault. This team has clear holes in it. I mean, KD and Booker led the NBA playoffs in minutes played. Both were playing 40+. And we were saying this from a while ago. That's not sustainable, especially for a guy like Chris Paul. But even on top of that, Devin Booker and KD. And you imagine that you're going into Denver having played 40+ minutes for a whole playoff series against the Clippers, and you walk into the altitude in Denver, you're not going to compete, man. So I think it is kind of just scapegoating Monty Williams in this case. I think it was a knee jerk reaction. He didn't deserve to get fired, but they had to put the blame on someone, and they put it on Monty. So. So you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Monty Williams, do I think he deserved to get fired? No. Plain and simple, he did not deserve to get fired. I feel like he kind of changed he turned the franchise around. So I don't see why he got fired. To me, the blame is on Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Mostly Kevin Durant, but Devin Booker, he ghosted Game 5 and 6. So, Kevin, especially we got to talk about this Kevin Durant guy. Like this guy, he literally
we can talk about this guy.
Yeah, like this guy, like I don't know what last year when he lost to the Celtics, I already like denounced him as he's not a top 10 player in this league. Like he's not a top 10 player in this league.
Kevin Durant, not a top 10 player in this league.
Nope, that's a hot take for you guys listening. Kevin Durant is not a top 10 player in this league. Like like without Steph Curry, like who is this guy? Like he's literally like just another Carmelo Anthony. Like no disrespect Carmelo Anthony, but that's who he is. Like he's a loser. He goes to other franchises and he just ruins them. Like it's flat out.
What is this like his third coach that he fired?
Yeah, that's what he does. He goes to franchise and he's like he ruins it. Like it's pretty sad, especially for Monty Williams, someone who waited so long to get another coaching job. I think the last coaching job he had before the Suns was it the Charlotte Hornets with the New Orleans
could have
Hornets?
sworn he was like assistant for like the
longest.
longest.
Like the head coaching job was like it was New Orleans Hornets with Chris Paul, right?
I'll go ahead and
Might have
fact
been
check that.
Actually, I think it was the
Yeah, I think it was that. So he waited such a long time just to turn around the Suns and get fired because they traded for Kevin Durant. But honestly, what he could have done better was the situation with DeAndre Ayton. That guy was #1 overall pick for a reason. Like the way they used, like I feel like Chris Paul ruined DeAndre Ayton's development because he was #1 overall pick for a reason. This guy, like the way they used him was like as like a role player. So and for Monty Williams to be beefing with him, I can't understand Ayton's side. Like he's probably thinking he has more to his bag than what he's like being asked to do. So
I don't know, but Ayton, like he doesn't have the intangibles when I watch him though. He hopped off the steroids and like the guy fell off.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe because he wasn't motivated or something, or like he was. I mean, you could tell he's beefing with a lot of people in the organization. So
yeah, definitely.
Maybe he just wasn't motivated. But I think he's a good player. He just wasn't. Yeah, he's clearly beefing with a lot of people in the locker room. But let me talk about Devin Booker. This guy, like, who is this guy really in the playoffs? Like, I really don't know. Like, the reason they only beat injured teams. If you look at their track record for the Phoenix Suns with Monty Williams and Devin Booker, every single playoff series they won is with the other team being injured. Literally every single series. That's a fact. You can look it up. Every single series, the other team's players were hurt. Every single series they lost to a healthy team. So who this guy is in closeout games? He ghosts. I don't know who this guy is in closeout
Yeah, those
games.
elimination game numbers are nasty.
Yeah, and like I'm not sure. Like before the series started, I thought I said Jamal Murray was gonna be the third best player in the series after Jokic and Kevin Durant, but I'm not sure who saw this coming. But Kevin Durant wasn't a top 3 player in the series, so
Like his number, the thing about what I hate is like if you look at Kevin Durant's numbers, you're gonna be like, "Yeah, I swear this guy was like the second best
yeah.
player in the series." But
But if
like
you watch it with your
I
eyes,
watched
you
the
see,
games,
yeah,
it's
you
like
watch it
nah,
like
like I didn't
no,
really like
this guy.
anytime Kevin Durant had 30, like when Devin Booker had 30, I could feel like he had
Oh
30
yeah,
points. Yeah, because he's hitting a bunch of mid-range jumpers, he's pushing the ball in transition, he's getting to the cup, whatever. KD, it's like I never felt him having 30 ever, like ever. Maybe
yeah,
one
because
game. Was it game 3 that he had 30?
yeah. No, I think it was game 4 where he shot like 11 for 19 or something like that.
Yeah, that's the only
Yeah,
game
that
I
was the
really
only
felt
game.
Kevin Durant. But
That
like
was
the
the only
rest of
game
the
he had in the
series,
series.
I
Yeah,
didn't really feel Kevin Durant's 30 pieces. It
yeah.
just wasn't there.
I just
I'm
feel
not gonna
like he
lie.
puts a lot of emphasis on efficiency. Kevin
Yeah,
Durant,
Efficiency,
the,
man.
the quality of shots that he takes, he wants to make sure it's very high efficiency, a high chance of him making that shot. He's not necessarily going out there just trying to put up shots because he's Kevin Durant. But I do think the criticism towards him is well warranted.
It's not
yeah,
just like the thing about Kevin Durant is like I people need to accept like this is who he is as a scorer now. Like he has deficiencies as a scorer. Like Kevin Durant is not the Kevin Durant of 2021. That's the last time we saw Kevin Durant
yeah.
be an actual like elite top. Like don't get me wrong, Kevin Durant can still score the basketball, no question about that. He's probably top 3 scorers on the
Yeah, he's still a
planet,
player.
but when it comes to the playoffs, when guys are way more fit, like Aaron Gordon gives him a physical
Yeah,
problem. When I looked at the numbers, I think Aaron Gordon had him like 36% when you guarded
yeah.
him.
I believe he
So
shot like 24 for 82 or something
yeah,
something
when
along
Aaron
those
Gordon
lines.
when Aaron
Yeah,
Gordon was guarding him, he gave him problems because Aaron Gordon is strong and he still has that quickness and he can push Kevin Durant around. Kevin
yeah,
Durant doesn't have the same level of quickness that he has before, so it's like he can't even get to his spots anymore. So
yeah.
I
Shout out,
mean,
shout out, Ime Udoka, man. That guy, he literally exposed how to defend Kevin Durant in the playoffs. You just have to be physical with him. When
he
he's
gave
physical,
everybody the blueprint.
yeah, he gave everyone the blueprint. When you're physical with him, he loses the ball. He's like his handle, like you're not used to Kevin Durant literally like turning over the ball like that. But when you get physical with him, he doesn't. He forgets how to dribble the ball. So
So Kevin Durant,
yeah,
when guarded by Aaron Gordon, 26 for 68, 38% from the field, 3 for 13, 23% from three. So
yeah, it's terrible.
Yikes. You wouldn't expect that from a guy like Kevin Durant.
I'm not gonna lie though. This series,
Crazy.
you guys know Devin Booker is my most hated player in the league, but I started to gain a little respect for him this. I'm not gonna lie. I started to gain a little respect for him this series because he was just giving us flat out problems. I'm not gonna lie. But then games 5 and 6 turned around, and I was like, nah, I know who this guy is at the end of the day. So all the respect, the little respect I had for him, it went out the window right there after games 5 and 6. Because people will look at the thing is what people they will look at the box score right for game 5, and they'll be like, oh, Devin Booker had 27 points, but no, he was down over 20 points in the fourth quarter, and he had less than 20 points going into that. So that they were just stat padding going to the fourth quarter. He jacked up a couple threes, got his stats up, and they went out the game. So at the end of the day, game 5 and 6, I don't know what he did. Maybe he was gassed or something, but yeah,
Nah, he didn't perform those last 2 games. But for me, I agree with y'all, man. I feel like Monty's a little scapegoat to what just happened for his firing. I feel like middle of the season with Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges still on the team and all their draft picks and everything they have saved up. I feel like he was doing fine with the team. They're in a good spot. I think they were sitting in the 5th seed before them acquiring KD, and I felt like them getting KD and trading away Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges just broke all hell's loose. In season, it's gonna look good when you're playing Detroit on a Friday night, or you're playing Orlando on a Sunday night, or you're playing Houston on a Wednesday night, and they get W's like that. But when you're facing up against, maybe a healthy Clipper team, if they were healthy in the playoffs, you'd probably lose that first round, or like they did against the Nuggets. If you face a healthy Nuggets team, they got annihilated. So for me, it's like they lost a lot of depth and doing that trade and getting KD. KD's a big name, but to me, last year he got exposed in the playoffs, and I felt like this year it's even worse. His efficiency was horrible. There was a game where he had like 35 points, but he shot 12 for like 32 or 11 for 32. It was a nasty game of shooting. Last 2 games he didn't show up, and it's like to me, even in the Clipper series, like he was stand in the corner and let Devin Booker work. Just you be the second option. You be the second option of that series. And to me, that's not like KD back in 2016, 2017, 2018. He was always, I'm that guy. I'm this this type of scoring. And I felt like he did lose a step. So, I felt like they used Monty as a scapegoat. Ain, I don't know if you guys see talent in that guy. He might have talent, but the mentality is too soft. And with
My
that
thing is, I always say Aiden has the tools, but like mentally, it's just like
Nah, yeah, mentally,
I think
if
he
you're
just gave
not
up on
there,
I think if he had made that move and he had been in Indiana, I think we would have seen a better version of
I
what
think he could
Aiden
have been an
is.
all-star in Indiana.
I think he
maybe,
could have been really good in Indiana, but like
maybe.
you got to
Vic-
think about it like this though. Chris Paul came in and Devin Booker's there. Aiden isn't like
They made
really
him a
think
role
Aiden's
player.
problem is like he feels like he doesn't get the same amount of post up touches that he used to get. Because you
Yeah.
remember when it was just him and Devin Booker, it's just two guys. So he was getting as much post ups because if you look at Aiden's rookie year, the guy was promising. The guy
Yep.
had a really solid, really
He's
strong
number one
rookie
overall
year.
pick for a reason.
Yeah. And then like Chris Paul and Devin Booker came in and things just slowed down, man.
I mean, that's what happens when you fall third on the food chain, and then of course when Kevin Durant's there, you're falling to the fourth, and you're going to be the fourth option, and Chris Paul is going to move up to third. But I mean, to talk about Monty Williams for a little bit, his last head coaching gig was with the New Orleans Hornets in 2010 all the way till 2015. So spent a year with OKC, bounced around a little bit to Philly, and then he ended up getting this head coaching gig with the Phoenix Suns. But I mean, do I believe Monty Williams deserved to be fired? I'm kind of like yes and no about this whole situation. I feel like at the end of the day, the Phoenix Suns did bring in new management. They brought in a new owner this past season, so Monty Williams just wasn't their guy. Although Monty Williams has brought the most success to the Phoenix Suns, in recent history since 2019, since that bubble run, where they went A-0. At the end of the day, it's just not there. It wasn't the owner's guy. And when you bring new ownership, new GM, new owners, you want to make sure that you have the right guy to lead the ship. And Monty Williams just wasn't the right fit for this team. And he could have handled the whole DeAndre Ayton situation a little bit better. I mean, I've always said that it was a red flag when Monty Williams wasn't there for DeAndre Ayton's contract signing. And these guys haven't spoken or said a word to each other throughout the last offseason, pretty much leading all the way into training camp. If you don't have that relationship with your franchise center and your head coach, that's a big problem already before everything kicks off in the NBA season. So, Monty Williams did a hell of a job for the Phoenix Suns. He turned them around. I'm sure the next head coach that comes in for this Phoenix Suns team will try to build a stronger relationship with DeAndre Ayton, making sure that he kind of sticks around for a little bit. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Phoenix Suns ended up moving off from him this offseason and kind of moving in a different direction, bringing in a lot more role players for this team to surround guys like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. I don't think Chris Paul will be on this team anymore. You can't necessarily rely on Chris Paul in the postseason. He is getting up there in age. His production has taken a big dip. And so, the Phoenix Suns, they're already starting off the offseason with the head coaching search. And then to go back to this past series with the Denver Nuggets, they just looked at those guys looked like they ran out of gas. Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, they didn't have their legs anymore in games 5 and 6. And that's like the main reason why these guys got swept off. They got pretty much beat off the floor on their home floor once again for the second year in a row. But I'm already done taking my victory lap on these guys. In mid-March, I told you guys that I wasn't necessarily too scared about this Phoenix Suns team. I mean, everything that I've highlighted throughout the course of these last month and a half, 2 months, was out there on display in that second round. They were able to escape by in that first round series versus the Los Angeles Clippers. But I knew once they ran into a team like the Denver Nuggets, or whether it was the Lakers, or whether it was the Golden State Warriors, their lack of depth was going to be a huge problem. And that's one thing that they will address in this offseason. But Monty Williams, I'm pretty sure he'll land somewhere because that's a quality head coach. The Milwaukee Bucks are already in talks with him right now, trying to figure out a solution to bring him over there, along with a few other candidates on their list. But if he ends up going to Milwaukee, I think that's a perfect spot for him. He can go ahead and try to get those guys to get back to the mountaintop again. But for the Phoenix Suns, these guys got to make sure that every move that they make in this upcoming offseason, is very well calculated, because if they slip up somewhere once again, I don't think they're going to have time to achieve the main goal, which is obviously winning a championship. They're not going to be able to maximize their championship window, because Kevin Durant's only getting older. Devin Booker, he's young, a little bit young still, about I think 26, 27 by now, if I'm not mistaken. But you still got to be able to surround those guys with as much talent as possible in order for these guys to get over the hump. So a lot of work that needs to be done alongside the Philadelphia 76ers. Now we have the Phoenix Suns that got to do some work in this upcoming offseason. But let's go ahead and
let me say something real quick.
Go ahead.
I feel like we said a lot about the Suns, but we're not talking about how well the Nuggets played. Like, I think it's safe to say now that Jokic is the best player in the world. Like after that series, I think he had like a 50
I
point
can
game
I can get behind Jokic being the best player on the planet.
I wouldn't disagree with you there, man.
I think it was up for grabs. I mean, like you had just Giannis after Giannis dropped the ball against the Miami Heat. You have Steph. It's really just between two guys at this point. Honestly, it was just Jokic and Steph.
Yeah.
I think it's just between the two. After Giannis had a chance to really like cement himself, I think this, and it makes me think like not just Giannis. I mean, how good would have the Brooklyn Nets been if they had just stayed together? Like, if Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving had stayed together, I think they really would have had a shot. It makes no sense that they split. Like, I think Kyrie really messed up his chance.
When they split, they were on a roll. Like they were
on fire.
They were on fire.
And they split up.
I feel like the disrespect Kyrie felt like he got from the owner and the GM about the contract, saying that, hey, if you win a championship, you'll get this much or that much. And it was like contract-based incentives, and Kyrie, took that with disrespect. So, I mean, if they stayed together, it could have been a different story.
But don't worry, I'm not gonna gloss over. I'll get back to him. Yes, I do believe Nikola Jokic is the best player on the planet. I mean, like, I think, as I mentioned this before, like there's maybe 8-7 superstars in the NBA, but the difference between those superstars, there's about 7-8 superstars in the NBA. The NBA is too expensive now, so. But the difference.
If Joel Embiid's on your list, then I don't know of it.
He's for sure a superstar. You think he's an MVP? Cannot be a star. I'll tell you that right now.
He's simply MVP, but continue.
An MVP can't be a star, man. He has to be a superstar.
MVP in NBA history, along with the Steve Nash one. It's right up there.
No, so respect Steve Nash, bro. That's real hoops. But to get back to my point, I mean, like the difference between some stars and superstars in the NBA is the intangibles and the ability to rise into the playoffs. I mean, it felt like Nikola Jokic could do anything he wanted at any point. You double him, he's finding the open man. You leave him one-on-one, he's scoring every single time. And I can really, really, really confidently say I think Jokic has the best touch I've ever seen ever from a basketball player. I think I've never seen a basketball player just finish anything just so lightly. Everything that he touches, it goes softly in the basket. He has that two-man game with Jamal Murray where he rolls to the basket and he does that little high shot floater, whatever it is, and puts it in. His hook shots, his up and unders, bunch of counters that he's able to. It felt like DeAndre Ayton had no, and I don't know why people are mad at DeAndre Ayton for not guarding Jokic. He's not having a chance, man. Like no center is gonna have a chance stopping Jokic. So I have to give him his props, man. I think he really proved why this guy's a two-time MVP. And there's a bunch of disrespect for guys like Jalen Rose. Not two-time, bro. We're not gonna go back in there, but for guys like Jalen Rose to talk about this guy just ascended to superstardom, I think that's just downright hilarious. And it's more proof of how these NBA analysts are just casuals and they're guys that disrespect European players, because he would never have said that about Joel Embiid. He would have never said that about Joel Embiid, but he's saying it about Jokic, and we know Jokic is a superstar. So, big props to him, man.
Yeah, I just wanted to give some props to my guys, especially another one, Jamal Murray. I mean, coming into this series, who would have thought Jamal Murray would outplay Kevin Durant in the series? Like, nobody would ever think that. Like, you guys know how high I am on Jamal Murray. I think he's a top 5 point guard in this league. And he's just proven it throughout this playoff series. I think he's averaging around 26, 27 points per game. Like, we know who this guy is in the playoffs. But in the regular season, I would say he gets held back a little bit. Like, he doesn't get unleashed in the regular season. That's why people will probably look at his accolades, probably be like, oh, he doesn't have an all-star, this and that. But he still averages around 20, 21 points per game in the regular season. Last 2 years he was healthy. But in the playoffs, we know who this guy is, and there's not many point guards better than this guy. I just want to give a shout out to that guy right there.
Shout out KCP too. Don't forget that guy,
Okay, yeah, KCP, yeah, he's good too. But those two guys, Jamal Murray and Jokic, they deserve all the credit in the world, man.
Jokic, man. phenomenal this playoffs. You know, every game is just in and out, just showing up. You know, offensively, you know, he's even helping out defensively. You know, people said Jokic, he gets picked on in the PNR, this and that, and they said Embiid is a better defensive player. But I mean, that game 7. Yeah, they were chasing for Embiid. Every possession, I felt like they were attacking Embiid. They're just coming off, hey, pick and roll, this one-on-one with Embiid. Just test him, and it worked, you know. And I haven't felt like anybody has tested Jokic like that, you know. He's been
Okay. Game 7, don't get me wrong. Embiid was terrible on defense, right? And don't get me wrong. Embiid had an elite defensive postseason. I hope you guys are aware of that. He had an elite defense. But what pisses me off is it's like, why can't we get both? Why can't we get an elite offense and elite defense from Embiid? Why does it have to be one or the other? Like, I think defensively, this guy was phenomenal. I mean, I can't count how many times the Boston players would look away from the basket because Embiid was there. But offensively, like that just really pissed me off.
We know who this guy is in the playoffs. But I just want to get on the record right here, right now, and just admit who's better, Jokic or Embiid.
Jokic is a better basketball player than Embiid. I'll go ahead and say that. He's better, whatever you want, put it, better impact, however you want to place it. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world. And
I've waited that for a long time.
I think that's already a given, though. I think.
I mean, it was never a debate to me, but people on Twitter, the media, they fooled so many people into thinking like it was even close. In my eyes, it was never even close.
I think people just wanted a storyline more. The next 2 big things, or the next 2 big centers to take place, this guy versus this guy. Like, you know,
I mean, Embiid, okay, let's not act like Embiid was a sympathy MVP though. Like, no, let's get that away. That was an MVP. He played like an MVP.
Dude, I mean, like Kendrick Perkins literally went on ESPN and said the reason why they're giving Jokic MVP is because he's white. Like he said all the voters.
Okay, but Jokic went on to lose like 4 games.
Literally had to do an apology letter just for him because they did the facts, and he said something like 80% of the voters are white. And they found that it was wrong, and ESPN had to issue an apology letter for him.
But what's it called? Jokic lost like 4 straight games after that, though. And I think
Embiid did the same thing right after.
Both of them had their struggles.
Okay, but Sixers won a 9-game win streak when all that was taking place, though. They were literally on a 9. They won 9, I think 10 out of their 12 games after that. So they were on a hot streak.
Are we ignoring the fact that Sixers are 11-5 without Embiid?
I mean, records without best players don't really move the needle for me like that.
For me, but the thing is, at that point in time, which I'm assuming this is probably mid to late March when this whole losing streak happened, I think the MVP race was already pretty much wrapped up. You know, the last 3-4 months of the regular season, we really saw the media kind of, you know, take a huge turn and starting this whole slandering and this hate campaign for Jokic. And so, you know, in order to stop Jokic from making history and, you know, joining a few players that have won the MVP award 3 times in a row, they kind of had to knock him down and kind of lift up the other guy. I'm not saying that Joel Embiid had a bad regular season by any means. I think he was, of course, a top candidate for the award. But at the end of the day, that was Jokic's award to lose. And I feel like there was at no point in this regular season where he lost it. You know, I was like, okay, Joel Embiid's the MVP. Even when, you know, those two had their matchup in late January, they still had one more matchup on the schedule for Jokic to do the same exact thing on his home floor, but which was, of course, cut short with Joel Embiid sitting out that game and then playing in the next game, I think, against the Dallas Mavericks. And so, you know, what really kind of changed this whole MVP race was, and another reason why people are kind of considering this a sympathy MVP is because of, you know, everybody hating on Jokic for some weird reason because he's about to make history. And the next thing you know, come postseason time, when we actually find out who he is as a basketball player in comparison to Joel Embiid, everyone's been like, okay, you know, Jokic is this guy now. He's a superstar now, blah, blah, blah. So it's
but the people's problems is it's such a group think, though. Like, there was no consideration for even Giannis. Like, that's the people's problem. There's no consideration for Embiid and Giannis when they first originally did that poll, I think, back in February. So people are like, what the hell, man? How are you telling me a guy that's literally first in the East and third in the East, both putting up monster numbers, get no consideration whatsoever? Of course, they're going to complain. That's a fair reasoning. So, you know, a guy that puts up 33 and 10 on the 3rd seed, playing good defense, another guy that puts up 30 and 12 with elite defense gets no consideration. People have a right to be mad and be like, okay, what's going on? Do I agree with the whole, well, Jokic is white? No, I think Jokic is one of the best centers ever to play basketball, but these guys deserve consideration, Giannis and Embiid. So, you know, at that time, things started to shift when Jokic lost those 4 games and Embiid was on a 9-game win streak. That's when things really started to take a shift. So, like, you know, you guys can say, well, you know, the first 4 or 5 months, Jokic had it wrapped up and everything, but we know how awards work. when it's crunch time, people look at that. That's when people really start paying attention. So, that's the shift that people had. And whether you agree or disagree, I don't think it's a sympathy MVP. I think that's a little bit too far. So,
Well, I mean, you even had analysts and ex NBA players talking about how they couldn't give it to him because Jokic hasn't gone to the finals or something like that. Like that's how I know. Like they people just wanted Embiid to win it because if you bring up this playoff performance or not his playoff performance, his playoff success, like first of all, people got to realize the MVP is a regular season award. This guy averaged basically a triple double on the number one team in the West. Like if that's not an MVP season, I don't know what is.
I
Like
mean, to give credit, but I want to get back to the Denver Nuggets a little bit. I feel like at Jokic Embiid MVP talk, it is what it is at this point, right? One guy's moving on to the Western Conference Finals. The other guy's packing a bag right now for Cancun with his MVP trophy in his suitcase. It is what it is. The voters did what they did. The whole hate campaign, Joel Embiid doing his thing in the regular season. We have to just let it lie, let it be there. But to get back to the Denver Nuggets, man, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm surprised of what they're doing right now in this postseason, because I kind of had that expectation for them coming into this postseason. This is probably the first time in a while where we've seen Jokic with his two running mates, Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray, healthy. And so when those two guys are healthy, I give Jokic and the Denver Nuggets any chance in the world to not only make the finals, but win the finals. And so, going into the first round, being a very young Timberwolves team, that's very expected. But to go into to play this Phoenix Suns team where people deem these guys a super team with Kevin Durant and Booker, I still had a lot of confidence in these guys getting out of this round. And even in those two losses where these guys lost on the road, I came on here and said I was still very confident in these guys to handle business on the road in Game 6 because of how they lost those games 3 and 4. And so, I'm not going to sit here and be surprised about the Denver Nuggets, but they have their work cut out for them. Now they go up against a team like the Los Angeles Lakers. And so I say let's go ahead and pivot right into that. Let's go ahead and jump right into the conference finals preview. Let's go ahead and start off with the Western Conference Finals. We're already on the topic of the Denver Nuggets, so we might as well stay there. The Denver Nuggets and the Los Angeles Lakers. Who do you guys got and why?
I'm gonna let Mini-Me start. Since we're talking about his team, and I'm gonna let Big Ish go after that because these are the two guys right here. Those are both their
My
teams.
good old friend, man.
Yeah,
It's
my
been
guy,
a while
man.
since we've seen each other in the playoffs,
Yeah,
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
This guy's been bullying me since I was 6 years old, man. During Sunday school,
It's been great. It's been
he's a
great.
Lakers fan. I was a Nuggets fan, but they made. I'm not gonna lie. Every single time we played in the postseason, they've beaten us. But in 2020, the difference was Jokic wasn't first of all, Jokic wasn't the player he is now in 2020. Also, let's be serious. LeBron called Adam Silver for foul calls, right? Like I think that's everyone knows that. That's not like some sort of like this is a fact I'm talking about. He called Adam Silver and said, "Where's my foul calls?" They asked Mike Malone that in the press conference, and Mike Malone said, "I gotta do the same thing, I guess." But it wasn't given to him. So this series, I expect Jamal Murray to have a big series. I expect Jokic to I'm not gonna lie, I expect Jokic to absolutely kill AD. Because the difference between this team and the Lakers team and right now in the bubble, they had so many centers on rotation, just throwing bodies at Jokic. Dwight Howard, probably one of the strongest players in the league at the time. He's still even at that age, so he was just physically make sure he's on Jokic, just pushing him, shoving him, all that stuff. Because they had JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard, and Anthony Davis. So they have 18 fouls to give just on him. So they're pushing him around, all that stuff, try to get him tired. And they don't have that now. I mean, who's their backup center? Tristan Thompson? If I dare that guy to play a single second in this series. I dare that guy. Jokic is going to absolutely abuse him, like worse he did than Bismack Biyombo. So I expect Michael Porter Jr. to have a good series as well. I mean, who's going to be guarding him? Austin Reeves or something like that? Let's be serious, right? So I'm not going to give a prediction because I don't want to jinx my team, but I expect us to win this series. I expect it to go either 6 or 7, but I'm not going to give a prediction on this series, but I don't think Anthony Davis is
you sound a little scared though. You can't get a prediction.
I'm not scared. I just don't want to jinx my team. This is I've been waiting a long time for this moment. So
fair enough.
You know me. Lakers in 6, baby. They've been the magic number all playoffs. Round 1, 6. Round 2, 6. Ain't no difference with the Nuggets. We winning in 6. I feel like LeBron's been taking a little backseat lately, and he finally showed himself Game 6 against the Warriors, and started attacking the basket more, started playing in the paint more, and he's just been more physical that game. I feel like he's been settling for threes, and I feel like this is the series that he's gonna start attacking the basket. He's gonna start playing more point guard, not off ball duties like he's been doing the first 2 rounds. And AD against Jokic, two of the best bigs in the league, probably two
Oh
top
yeah,
three bigs in the
one and
league.
two.
One and two right there for sure. Jokic, and 2-time MVP, man. He's a bowling ball. And like you said, we ain't got Dwight. We ain't got JaVale McGee to come in and sub in. It's gonna be a different type of series defensively for us. I feel like it's gonna be a lot more help ball and hope guys like MPJ and KCP not hit their shots. And just rotation. I feel like he's gonna come with a game plan for these guys, and it's gonna be tough. Jamal Murray against Schroeder and D'Lo. Not two fantastic guards.
I don't know who's guarding that, man.
I feel like we could put Vando on Jamal Murray, but at the same time, it's like we have Vando for Ja for a certain reason. Ja can't shoot, and you can watch Ja and physically get him in the paint. And Steph Curry, Vando electric. He can run, chase him around, and everything.
Vando got benched last series though.
He got benched last series towards the end because they came with a different game
shoot.
plan. Can't shoot offensively. Can't stretch.
We're gonna let him shoot all day if he plays. I promise.
And I feel like defensively, MPJ's not MPJ, but Jamal Murray's he's a little different, more pick and roll type. It's a lot in the pick and roll, a lot of coming off of screens and shooting.
Lakers play a lot of drop coverage as well.
Yeah, so we play a lot of drop coverage. So I feel like Vandal's not gonna start. We're gonna have Schroeder starting. Schroeder's gonna be he's gonna give us some buckets, and I feel like Lonnie Walker's gonna step up as well. He played a lot of minutes the last couple of games, and I've been saying Lonnie Walker over Troy Brown and Malik Beasley, man. Offensively and defensively, I feel like this guy's been much better than those two. He can hit a shot, he can create his own shot, he's athletic, he can chase guys off the screen, off the ball, and everything defensively. And it helped us against the Warriors. So, for us, the rotation guys got to step up. Reeves, D'Lo, Rui, Schroeder, guys like that. And I feel like AD and LeBron, man, I feel like they're gonna get theirs. A guy that's from San Jose, grew up, 15 minutes from us. Aaron Gordon. I can't wait for LeBron to eat him alive. I feel like LeBron's gonna abuse him. He's gonna, sun him. It's gonna be different than KD. KD was, looking for tough twos and stuff. LeBron's gonna take him straight to the basket. It's gonna be, a little ball. So
with what burst does that guy have left?
Yeah, we know what burst with,
It sounds like you're
against the Warriors and you dropped 39-9 in that elimination game. Send them boys home, man. Come on.
It sounds like you're banking on a lot of role players this series, so I don't know how it's gonna work out for you. But
players just gonna show up like they've been showing up.
I just want to see. I just want to see how AD, because this is the first series he's actually get tested right with his matchup. I just want to because the difference between now and the bubble is during the bubble he didn't really have to guard Jokic until like the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, or like the entire fourth quarter, because he had Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. This series he's got to be the primary defender on Jokic, and Jokic is gonna bully him. I want to know how much of the bullying he could take, because Jokic is gonna pound his chest in every single play. I promise you, he's gonna pound his chest in, and I don't know how much of that he's gonna take. So we're gonna see if he breaks.
We ain't worried. Defensively, we're gonna put Jokic in pick and roll every single possession.
The Phoenix Suns tried that with the two best scorers in the league. Right?
We got LeBron to do that. Different story. Yeah. You can mention Book, you can mention KD, guys like that, but we got the GOAT. It's a whole different story. So we'll see what happens, but I got my prediction, man. Lakers.
When Austin Reeves is your best shooter, I'll live with that. So
keep on hating on Reeves.
I'm not hating on him. He's your best shooter. I'll live with that.
Yeah, he could be our best shooter. But last two series, that's what they said. They can live with it or not. But
who'd you play last two series though? Let's be real.
6. Don't hate on the past champs. Don't hate on the Warriors.
Yeah, I had a lot of respect for the Warriors, but they're not the same team they were last year. So
that's right. That's what a lot of people were saying. But yeah, Otto Porter Jr. That's about it. That's all they're missing.
So Lakers in 6, right? I'll hold you to that.
Lakers in 6.
I'm gonna be honest, bro. I got Nuggets in 6 in this series. I think, there's no evidence of anything being similar to the bubble at all. In fact, I think the situation has gotten worse for the Lakers. You look at it. This version of LeBron James is not a top 5 player on the planet. Let's keep it 100. This version of LeBron James is not a top 5 player on the planet. Anthony Davis, even his scoring ability has taken a dip. Defensively, he's always going to be an all-timer, no question about that. But offensively, the two stars for the Lakers, they've taken a step back, and they've been reliant on contributions from their role players. And I think the difference in this type of series is you have to guard all five Nuggets players when you're guarding them. You have to guard all five. It's not like the Warriors where you had Gary Payton there and you had Draymond Green there and you had Kevon Looney. They have a bunch of
Andrew
guys that
Wiggins.
even Andrew Wiggins at times. There's a bunch of guys for the Nuggets that you literally have to guard. And Jared Vanderbilt, the biggest issue with him is that in one-on-one coverage, he's good. He's a good defender. Don't get me wrong, very good defender. The reason why he got benched against the Warriors is because he cannot get around screens. Getting around screens was his biggest issue. That's why they could not have him guard Steph Curry, because when Steph Curry is running around screens, Vanderbilt has that problem where he cannot get around them. His screen navigation is terrible. So they had to switch the matchup on that. And if Vanderbilt starts, I think this is a series where Rui has to start for the Lakers. That's going to be the difference maker. I think if Rui starts, that's a big difference. But again, I think the Lakers are banking too much on role players to contribute in this type of series. I think the Nuggets have way better role players, in my opinion. Guys are going to step up. You have MPJ as your third option. You have Christian Brown. You have Bruce Brown. You have a bunch of guys, Aaron Gordon. And like LeBron, like I get it. I think he has more dimensions to his offense than KD because he's a playmaker. He's going to post up. But Aaron Gordon, like he's the one guy left in the playoffs I can put my hands up in and I say I think he can match LeBron in terms of physicality and his overall size. Like this version of LeBron James, I don't see that same burst from him. I don't see that same athleticism. I think he's been elite defensively, but offensively, he's taken like a nosedive offensively, especially his outside shooting. So I think the Lakers are banking too much on their role players stepping up. And I think in this type of series, AD is going to have a problem guarding Jokic. He's going to have a really big problem because, when you have those three bodies that you can throw at him with AD and JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard, that's different than just having to guard Jokic straight up a one-on-one for an entire series. That's a huge difference. And and my question for the Lakers is, what are they going to do in the non-AD minutes? That's been a problem every single time. Like every single game in this so far in the Lakers playoffs, it's been a problem in non-AD minutes. What are you going to put Wendy and Gabriel there? Are you going to put Mo Bamba, who's hasn't even touched the floor yet? Like, what are they going to do? And then are you going to put LeBron at the 5? They're going to get killed.
Tristan Thompson.
Exactly. So I think the non-AD minutes are going to hurt the Lakers. I think the role players for the Nuggets are a little bit better, in my opinion. And I think overall, the star matchup between Jokic and AD, it's going to be a Jokic sided affair. So I got the Nuggets in 6.
Big H, you said earlier, 6 is the magic number, and I agree with you. But in this situation, it just won't be in your favor, sir. I have the Nuggets winning in 6. For all the reasons you guys have mentioned. But the one thing I do want to talk about that I think will separate the Nuggets from the Los Angeles Lakers in this specific series will be Jamal Murray. We know the matchup between Nikola Jokic and AD. Those guys are going to battle it out. AD's been the best defensive player in this postseason. Jokic has been the most dominant. So we're going to see those two guys battle it out. But Jamal Murray has to take his matchups personally. He's going up against guys like D'Angelo Russell, Dennis Schroeder, Austin Reeves. He has to consistently attack these guys each and every play, in each and every game, whether it's high pick and roll, whether it's just one-on-one action. Jamal Murray, it doesn't matter who is on him necessarily come postseason time because he's seen all the matchups so far in his career. He's seen all the best perimeter defenders. He's seen all these guys go at him. He's still able to produce. So now you come across this Lakers basketball team where D'Angelo Russell is going to be their point guard and Dennis Schroeder is going to come off their bench, or whether he's in the starting lineup. Austin Reeves, those are guys that he can attack and he can take advantage of. He can go ahead and get buckets pretty much freely if the officials decide to let these guys kind of play it out. Hopefully that's whatever happened in the bubble, it's in the past. The officials don't necessarily get involved in this series, but the Nuggets are going to win in 6, and I think it's going to come down to who's going to be able to steal a road game and stuff like that. I think the Nuggets are the more capable team of doing so, and so it's going to be interesting to see how Jokic and AD battle it out, because I feel like in order for the Lakers to win, they're going to need a lot of LeBron. I'm going to use a word that Shannon Sharp uses a lot. It's a virtuoso performance. He's going to need a lot of those, where LeBron James is pretty much the most dominant player out there on the floor, and on the floor at the same time with AD and Jokic. And I feel like LeBron doesn't necessarily have that in the tank anymore. We've seen a little bit of it in that Memphis series where he kind of took over in some stretches of the game. We've seen it a little bit in this Golden State Warriors series where he kind of just dominated the game from time to time, but was really relying on his role players. But in order to get by this Denver Nuggets basketball team, this guy LeBron James has to pretty much be the best player out there on the floor, and I just don't think LeBron James kind of has it in him anymore. Whether he's dealing with that foot injury that's been bugging him for quite some time now, or father time is catching up to him, and so LeBron James really has to put his team on this back because Anthony Davis, we know what he's going to bring defensively, but offensively, what is it going to look like from game to game? Are we going to get the Anthony Davis from these last couple of series where the even games he's going off, the odd games he's going out, he's going down? Like it's going to be interesting to see how consistent AD is in this series because on a night where Jokic has it going, AD has to have it going. But if he doesn't have it going, where's the scoring going to come from? So I'm not going to trust guys like, Austin Reeves, D'Lo, and Schroeder, and Rui, and Lonnie Walker, and those guys to come alive like they did in that Golden State Warriors series and with the opportunity that was given to them. I just don't think that's the case here. These guys, I feel like the Denver Nuggets, they're built for this championship run that they're on right now. Very well coached. And so it's going to be interesting to see what Darwin Ham does with the rotations. I think Abdi highlighted an amazing point. Those non-AD minutes, what is Darwin Ham going to do in those situations? Because Jokic may be out there on the floor and AD might not be out there on the floor. And you can't sit there and play 80, 40, 44 minutes a night because I don't think his body's going to be able to take that and withstand all the force that he's getting on a consistent basis, play by play. Jokic attacking him, and really forcing AD to kind of, play defense and offense. I feel like he might just run out of gas, whatever's left in the tank right now. And so, it comes down to the GOAT, LeBron James, Big H, your guy. It all comes down to him. All the pressure in the world is on him to deliver, to get you guys back into the finals like you guys did in 2020. But unfortunately, I think, your season gets cut short here. It'll be.
I don't think people are even highlighting enough. Like Lakers offense isn't that good, by the way. Like I hope people are well aware of that. Like out of the remaining teams in the playoffs, they're the worst. They have the worst offensive rating out of the entire group. I give it to them. Their defense has been the best, but offensively, they've really I think they're like 8th in offensive rating. That's even behind some teams that got eliminated, like the Atlanta Hawks and a couple other teams. So, offensively, it's been reliant on contributions from LeBron James scoring here and there, and Anthony Davis, of course. But, you're going up against the best offense in the playoffs and arguably the best offense in the entire NBA. So it's a whole different matchup. You're going up against that same type of maybe motion offense, but this time you're going up against a 2-time MVP, and he's the center. So I think it's a whole different type. Yeah, and Jamal Murray, of course. They make up that 2-man game, and you get contribution from Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon. And I don't think people understand. Everybody on that starting lineup can score the basketball. Like people need to understand that Aaron Gordon's shooting 40% from the corner. Like he's not missing from that corner 3, so you can't really help off of him. Jamal Murray, we know who he is. MPJ, he's never one to be afraid of a shot. There's no shot that he doesn't like. Every single guy on this court can KCP. All these guys to shoot the basketball. And then you got Christian Brown and Bruce Brown coming off the bench, terrorizing your guards at the point of attack. What can you do? So, the Lakers defense, we're going to really see how much it holds up and really how much their offense can produce. Because if LeBron James isn't LeBron James, they're in trouble.
The thing is that kind of helps the Lakers, why they've been so successful so far up until this point. Obviously they're not a great 3-point shooting team. So in those games where they're winning, they're shooting pretty well from the 3-point line. And so I think teams are going to kind of live with that. The Memphis Grizzlies tried it. The Golden State Warriors tried it. And, those two teams failed at it. I think the Denver Nuggets have a good shot at kind of capitalizing on that, kind of living and dying by that Lakers 3 ball because they don't necessarily have a lot of great shooters, which pretty much will be the difference maker. But, a lot of the guys on the Denver Nuggets kind of have to assert themselves in this series. Guys like you mentioned, Aaron Gordon, KCP, and Michael Porter Jr., because those guys will be playing a lot of minutes in this series. And so, those guys got to stay locked in. Those guys got to hit their shots. But in this series, it's going to come down to who's got the 2 better stars. Is it Jamal Murray and Jokic, or is going to be LeBron James and Anthony Davis? And I guess we're just going to have to wait and see for that one. But
one thing I want to highlight of what Yahya just said. I'm not gonna lie, the Nuggets, there's 2 things with our defense that's kind of shaky. We've never really been a good 3-point defending team in our transition defense. And I know Lakers are a really good transition offense team.
That's what the transition defense, I think that's going to be where the Lakers are looking to exploit. Not really maybe not as much as a 3-point shooting team because they're not like a volume 3-point shooting team and they don't shoot that great.
But it doesn't really matter. We're a terrible 3-point defending team.
Yeah, but the transition is where Like the issue, but the good thing about the Nuggets so far from the playoffs is, you know, a lot of people haven't really highlighted MPJ's improved defense. I think that's like, I
Yep.
think he was phenomenal in that Sun series with his rotations and in isolation. And one thing that people don't understand about defense is rebounding is a huge part of defense, and like that ability to not give your opponent second chances. It's why Jokic is like, whenever sometimes you see his defensive rating and stuff like that, it's like strong, and you're like, how does that make any sense? But that defensive rebounding doesn't. They don't give you second chances. That's the thing about the Nuggets is Aaron Gordon's going to be on the glass, Michael Porter Jr. is going to be
Michael
on the
Porter.
glass, and Jokic is going to be on the glass. So three of those guys are all what 6'10", so minimum. So they're all going to hit the glass, and the Lakers, I think their best chance is they have to try to exploit the Nuggets in transition. That's like the key difference for them. AD has to like push the break. They have to get out quick. So it's going to be an interesting matchup.
That I like that. I like how you gave Michael Porter Jr. his flowers on his defense, because that's something I've been telling Yahya all season. This guy, he's an improved defender. He's not the same defender he was a couple years ago, where he was disengaged and all that stuff. Like the dude that he plays defense. So I like that shout out that you gave him.
Yeah, like I think he
told
did
me
a
he's
great
better
job,
than
man.
Bi. He told me he's better than
Oh,
Bi.
no, we'll
Yeah.
get that a different episode. We'll talk about that. But yeah, he's better than Brandon Ingram for sure.
You tripping, man.
But that might sound crazy, but you and I be with the same people that said Brandon Ingram's better than Jason Tatum. So, how crazy do I really sound?
Fair enough.
You know,
No,
fair
not
enough.
me. To be fair, you have. I gave Jason Tatum his props, his flowers. I think that guy's a superstar, 100%.
Oh yeah,
I think he's a number one option in this league. The guy is a bona fide star. But you know, Brandon Ingram, man, the second half of the season, he had a strong stretch of basketball, man. That's what we were looking at.
But since we're on the topic of Jason Tatum, let's push this Brandon Ingram, Michael Porter Jr. talk aside. Let's go ahead and get to the Eastern Conference Finals. We have a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Finals between the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics. These two teams have matched up with each other 3 out of the last 4 Eastern Conference Finals. And I believe now the series is 2-1 in Boston's favor. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Or I think they're 1-1 apiece. I'm not too sure, but let's go ahead and jump right into who's going to win and why.
Yeah, it's 1-1
I think it's
apiece.
1-1. Yeah.
All right. Like, I've been betting against my own team every single series. I did it against the Bucks, rightfully so. To be fair, though, I can't be slated for. Like, you expect the number 1 seed in Giannis to beat us. Like when we're 8 seed, we've been struggling all season long. Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler. We win that series. The Knicks, again, I'm like, there has to be at some point where our role players are stop playing this good. Like, there's no point. There's no reason why Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin should be playing like this, and Kevin Love is treating it like it's 2016. Then all of a sudden things change, and Jimmy Butler, if you really look at it, he had a solid series, but it wasn't like a eye popping series. Like, it wasn't like in your face type of series. I think it was a contribution from a bunch of guys, especially Bam. I want to give him a shout out. I think he was phenomenal this series.
Kyle Lowry.
Kyle Lowry, exactly. Another player that showed up for us, been great off the bench. If we got this version of Kyle Lowry a year ago, things would have been a lot different. But now we're going up against the Celtics, and yes, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they have their inconsistencies. And Boston, they have issues where they don't lock in. But I think one of the biggest differences for us now is we don't have PJ Tucker and Victor Oladipo on defense this time. Those are guys were 2 guys that were key for us on the perimeter, guarding these guys. Like, we're gonna have to give Haywood Highsmith minutes, bro. we're gonna give Haywood Highsmith minutes. And don't get me wrong, I swear, he's been playing good defense when he's matched up with Tatum this season. I'm not even joking. It's an undrafted player.
An undrafted player.
Another undrafted player. Don't get me wrong, but like offensively, he's not that good. But like, my issue is we just do not have the wings to match up with these guys. That's my problem, and it's gonna have to take a Jimmy Butler and Bam series. And this is where we really miss Tyler Hero. This is the series that I think now it's gonna show up where we miss Tyler Hero. Don't be wrong. Defensively, I think we've been great without Tyler Hero. And, you know, sometimes he has issues where he's a ball stopper and he doesn't move the ball. But as a shot maker, sometimes you just need a guy like that to just come in and give you a 20 piece or give you 25. That's the stuff that you expect from Jordan Poole. That's what the Warriors needed. And we're gonna really miss Tyler Hero in this type of series where it's gonna be on Jimmy Butler and Bam. I think defensively we're gonna keep up with the Celtics, but offensively, it's hard to trust role players this much. I feel like at some point you don't have enough players to compete, and I think Boston wins this series in 6. I do believe Jimmy Butler will give us a game, and Bam's gonna step up. But overall, I think Boston is just more deeper as a team. They got too many players on that roster to fail. So
The one thing that's scary about Miami is the ability for them to switch 1 through 5. Like Bam Adebayo, I don't know how that guy doesn't have a defensive player of the year by now. That guy is easily one of him and Anthony Davis are probably the 2 best defensive players in the league. So for him not to have a defensive player of the year is pretty shocking. But last year, me and Big H, we were going back and forth between who's better, Jason Tatum and Jimmy Butler, and it was pretty dead on even. I'm not sure there's the right answer on that. So it depends how far Jimmy Butler could take the Miami Heat.
do you trust Jimmy Butler's health? Do you think
Yeah,
he's gonna be healthy by now?
Dude, that guy, like the amount of faith I have in that guy is it's almost up there with the amount of faith I have with Kawhi Leonard. You guys know how I feel about Kawhi Leonard. Like Jimmy Butler, I trust that guy 100%. It doesn't matter how healthy he is, nothing. But I just trust that guy. So if he shows up, I have the Heat winning in the series in 7. Regardless, I think the series is going 6 or 7 regardless. But yeah, my gut's telling me Heat in 7.
Who we got, Big H?
Man, this is gonna be a tough series, man. Last series I picked Miami to beat the Knicks, man. I really didn't want to double down on this team, you know. I feel like with Tatum's inconsistencies going through these playoffs, last 2 rounds, and a team like Miami that just jumps at that, you know, that opportunity. They pounce at that type of opportunity when they see star players not performing. Jimmy Butler smells that he goes after that immediately. So. Man, Miami,
I will point out one thing though. PJ Tucker was a liability from 3 last postseason.
Offensively,
especially like I get like people like when you look at that series again and why Bam did not have high scoring numbers. I promise you, if you look at it from an objective sense, bruh, Robert Williams is literally standing in the paint, man. He's literally just camping in the paint. I don't think he's gonna be able to do that much because of how well Kevin Love's been shooting.
Kevin Love, yep.
Kevin Love's been shooting. Kevin Love's been shooting phenomenal this series, so I think they might switch back to that lineup, yeah, where they have Horford at the 5. But Bam, that's like, I'm not saying Bam is a better basketball player than Embiid. Don't get me wrong. I'm definitely not saying that. I think Bam will take advantage of a matchup against Horford much better than Embiid did. I think he's gonna take advantage of that matchup than Embiid did, because Embiid. It's like, I don't know what it is about old centers like Horford and Marc Gasol, but these guys give Embiid PTSD. I think Bam's gonna do a much better job if they play a small ball lineup. But Kevin Love is gonna be a key in this series because that guy Robert Williams is very annoying. He's just literally gonna stand in the paint. So that's a big key in this series.
That's what I was gonna say. I feel like Boston's gonna go back to that small ball lineup. You know, get Derek White in the game, and for them to spread.
What happened to that guy, bro?
Hey, fell out of the rotation, went back to the 6-man role.
After the Atlanta series,
like the guy with Derek White. What the hell happened after the first round series? The guy was looking like a star.
Round, he was cooking. Second round, he just disappeared. He just, out of nowhere, went to the bench, and I mean, rightfully so. They had to make a switch. Get Robert Williams to help on Embiid, but and it's a tough series. I don't know who to pick. I feel like I'm gonna go Boston. I'm gonna go Boston at 7. I feel like, this year again, I feel like they go back to the finals. I feel like they just got too many pieces on the team. With even Tatum's inconsistencies, here they are in the Eastern Conference Finals. They got guys like Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart. They got guys like Malcolm Brogdon coming off the bench. So they got some key players. They got some guys that been through, been in the playoffs for a while. They got Al Horford right there. He's a vet. He's been in the playoffs for a long time. So I feel like, Jimmy Butler playing with a lot of undrafted players. It's gonna be tough. It's like, can their role players, keep it up? That's what, like you guys said about the Lakers. Can the Lakers role players keep it up again for another series? Can Miami Heat's role players show up again for another series and be lights out from 3? Can Kyle Lowry and guys like Max Strus and Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin come off the bench? Can they show up consistently throughout the series and help Jimmy Butler and Bam? We'll see, but I think I got Miami at 7.
Oh, you
Miami or
Tyler
Boston?
Hero. Oh no, I got Boston at 7. And Tyler Hero, man, if he was in the series, I feel like it would have been big difference. I feel like, having that second scoring option right there to help Jimmy, a guy that can go create his own shot, get his own shot, and get you a 20 ball himself. I felt like it would have been big against Boston. So
I thought he should have been back by now. They said it was
Apparently he
4
took
to
off
6
his
weeks, right?
cast. Apparently he took off his cast.
Yeah, I
His
remember
hard cast, but like he's not there yet. He took off his hard cast, but
Yeah, because
Yeah,
the initial was 4 to 6 weeks, right?
yeah.
So
But
Yeah,
apparently,
4 to
like
6
they
weeks.
said he might be all the way out to the finals. Like who
right.
knows?
Last couple games of the series, but yeah, for me, yeah, I got Boston at 7, but I feel like it's gonna be a dogfight. Jimmy and Tatum, I felt like they're gonna go at it.
yeah,
Uh,
the difference is between. Oh, sorry to cut you off. I just have to say one last thing
no, go ahead.
because
Go ahead.
we saw what Bam did last time versus the Celtics. Like Robert Williams, he basically outplayed him. So like this has to be a Bam series. Like he has to show his dominance. He has to average at least 20 and 10 in the series for them to have a chance. So I said he in 7. This has to be on Bam Adebayo. He has to average at least 20 and 10 in the series for them to have a chance to win the series.
Definitely.
Very, 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 very fair point. My brother Big H, man, you started off your your analysis and your predictions so well, and then you kind of just lost me somehow, some way. You started off well, you said some things about the Boston Celtics and their inconsistencies, and that's one thing I was going to come here on here and highlight. I feel like the Boston Celtics, although they're back in the Eastern Conference Finals again, they really haven't been tested much in these first 2 rounds. We saw a little bit in that Atlanta Hawks series, but we all knew somehow, some way, those guys are going to fumble it against Philly. Even when things weren't looking so well for them in that series, when they were down 3-2, they were still able to rally back and win a road game and then win another home game in Game 7. And the Sixers missed some opportunities to capitalize in that series. I feel like in this series, if these guys continue to play this the way that they've been playing, the Miami Heat are the only team left that can kind of capitalize on their mistakes and capitalize on these opportunities that are being given to them. And so, I mean, I think what Abdi's doing is going against this team and hoping that they win because it's been pretty much working throughout the course of the playoffs. But I'm going to go ahead and stick with the Miami Heat in this series. I think the series goes 7. It goes the distance. And obviously the difference makers are going to be, guys like Jimmy Butler and Bam. But I'm not really going to have any questions for, the role players that have been playing well for the Miami Heat. Guys like Max Strus, Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent, Kyle Lowry. Those guys have been stepping up in their roles and thriving. And so Jimmy Butler, Abdi mentioned it. He didn't necessarily have like a standout series against the New York Knicks, but it wasn't needed. And so I feel like he has a lot of energy left in the tank, a lot of gas left for him to kind of just go out there and get his revenge back against this Boston Celtics team. A team they lost to in 7 last year, off of Jimmy Butler missed 3-pointer when they were down 1 in that Game 7. And so Jimmy Butler, he's out there for revenge. And if there's any guy that I'm going to stick with in this postseason, that's out of the guys that are left, he's one of the few guys that are at the top of my list. And so the Boston Celtics, the only way these guys win is if they just consistently play their brand of basketball, which is, they live and die by that 3-point line. They've done it throughout the course of the regular season. They've done it so far in this postseason. When they're not shooting well, they're not going to win a lot of games. But if they're hot, like they were in Game 7, where Jason Tatum hit about like 6 3-pointers, they're going to be a really tough team to be. And so I think the Miami Heat, they capitalize on those games where, the Boston Celtics don't necessarily have it on. They're not necessarily shooting well. Jason Tatum is coming out extremely flat. Jaylen Brown is not necessarily carrying the load. Obviously, guys like Marcus Smart, they're not gonna really contribute like that in terms of like the scoring of like 25, 26 points per game. But I think the Miami Heat, they're gonna do a good enough job defensively, because that's where it's gonna start. They got to be able to contain these two guys. They got to be able to stop Jason Tatum and stop Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown, throughout the course of this postseason, hasn't really been the guy that I expected him to be, because I've always said it's a 1A 1B situation between him and Tatum. But I think Tatum's kind of.
Are we finally done with that though?
I think now I can fully agree and jump on board and say Tatum's pretty much separated himself from the 1A 1B conversation. Especially with the way Jaylen Brown played in this past series against Philly. There's a lot of opportunities for him to kind of just assert his dominance in games where Jason Tatum didn't have it going. But for some odd reason, in the second half of games, he didn't necessarily want to take initiative and kind of just be that lead scorer for them. And so, it took Jason Tatum 50 points in Game 7 to kind of get them over the hump and get him into this Eastern Conference Finals. And so, if the Celtics, they need Jaylen Brown, they need their 2 wing players to play absolutely amazing. But I just can't trust what they've shown me so far. Their inconsistencies have been too much, and a lot of people don't necessarily want to highlight it, simply because when these guys are playing extremely well, it's like the best brand of basketball you can watch. These guys are shooting lights out from 3. Jason Tatum's getting to wherever he wants on the floor, and then you get Jaylen Brown, who those two guys kind of get into it. You take a shot, I take a shot, my turn, your turn offense, and it's going to be extremely tough to beat. But the Miami Heat, like I said, the emphasis starts on defense. I think, with Bam Adebayo leading the way and all these other role players that can play defense and shoot the ball pretty well like they have so far will be the true difference maker. Jimmy Butler, the revenge tour is on, man. I'm pretty sure he's extremely motivated for this series, and he's going to want to get his get back from these guys for what they did to him last year. So go ahead and give me the Heat in 7. But this is going to be a very, very entertaining series, man. I completely agree with all of you guys. All of you guys going in different directions. Some of us are going with the Heat, some of us are going with Boston. Because truly, this series can go either way, man. It's pretty much like a coin flip. You can't go wrong.
I just want to go ahead and say one thing I saw on Twitter. People are saying if Jimmy Butler wins this championship with the Heat, this will be the toughest championship in NBA history, or the toughest championship run in NBA history for a single player.
I think you can make a case.
Yeah,
I think you can make a very strong case.
I just want to go ahead and say, if he does that, he's better than Kevin Durant all time. I'm gonna say just simple as that. He's better than Kevin Durant all time.
Somehow, someway, we always resort back to Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Durant ruined the NBA for me, so I have to take my shots at him.
No, Jimmy Butler winning a ring with this team, I think, that's like it goes above Dirk's championship run for me.
Oh, for sure.
For a guy because what he did in that first round already, it's like historic. Then he beat the Knicks.
Did he make a top 75?
Jimmy Butler, no, definitely not.
No,
definitely not.
Wow.
There's a lot of guys that didn't make the top 75, like Kyrie and Dwight Howard.
Yeah,
and
that list was a joke. But I'm gonna go on the record and say right now, Jimmy Butler wins a ring with the Heat this year. That guy's easily a top 25 player in all time.
This would be he's automatically. He's like, to me, like you'd be like an automatic top 7 playoff performer ever. Like automatic. Like, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Like, we got a series ahead of us against Boston, but like, it'll rest on the 2 stars for the Heat. Jimmy and Bam, especially Bam. I think this is like a redemption type of playoffs for him. We saw last time in the bubble when he played against the Celtics. Now he's up against a much better defensive Celtics team, but I think he can still get to his spots and still score and do what he needs to do defensively. So it's all on Bam, man.
Shout out to Bam, man. One guy I've rooted for. This guy's been amazing defensively, so it's nice to see him get his flowers in this postseason run that these guys are on. He's been causing problems each and every round. I feel like that carries into this upcoming round against the Celtics. It's going to be tough, but obviously he's going to be the anchor that he is for that Miami Heat basketball team. And then everybody else, like guys like, of course, Jimmy Butler's going to do his thing, but everybody else got to contribute in each and every way possible in order to beat this Boston Celtics team, man. But like I said, go ahead and give me the Heat in 7. I trust these guys to somehow, some way win a couple road games in this series, because in order for them to win, they gotta do that, because of course Celtics are a scary team. But now that we've got our Western Conference and Eastern Conference Finals preview and predictions out of the way, let's go ahead and close out this episode with our last topic of the night, which is Ja Morant.
It's a parade in my city, yeah.
It's a parade in my city, yeah.
This guy, Ja Morant, once again has found himself in a nice funk with the league. Another suspension that's looming over his head. I think it was Saturday night or Sunday morning. This guy was on IG Live with his friends, and he got caught once again with a gun on him. And immediately, the Memphis Grizzlies and the NBA suspended him indefinitely. Now Adam Silver is working out the details and the length of his suspension going into this upcoming regular season. But this guy's getting suspended again. What do we think about that?
I think the NBA is gonna hand him a 25-game suspension, like minimum. I think minimum.
It's
gonna be 20. Might range from 25. I think 40 might be the max that they hit him with. But like, I think people's problem isn't that Ja Morant has a gun. Like, in general, I don't think people's problem isn't that. I think it's the fact that this guy goes on Instagram Live and he's waving it around, and the league knows that this guy is one of the faces of the league. He's one of the young and up-and-coming stars. Like, regardless of how people feel about Ja Morant, he's a highlight reel. He's a viral clip every time he plays. He's gonna do something exciting. Him and Zion, to me, are one of the younger guys that are gonna be the faces of this league. But every time you do that and compromise yourself, you're literally putting yourself in a position where the league has to take action. And like, I would not be surprised if they suspended him half the season. I would not be surprised if they did that. Like, if they try to make an example out of Ja Morant, because What other NBA players doing this? What other NBA players even putting himself in a position like this? Right? I just don't understand. And people are trying to deflect to why is his friends always recording. His friend tried to save him. His friend literally tried to put down the phone and close the IG live. Like his friend was covering for him. And Ja Morant's a grown ass man. Let's keep it 100. He's a grown man. He doesn't need somebody babysitting him. People are constantly talking about, it's his company, it's the guys around him. Bro, this guy's a 23-year-old, 22-year-old, whatever he is. He's a grown ass man. He knows how to handle himself. So, it's on Ja Morant to put himself in a position where he wants to succeed. He's a great basketball player, but off the court, man, like if this happens again after this, like imagine does the league is he out the league? So he got a lot to think about.
Biggest thoughts, mini thoughts.
Oh yeah, for me, man. First time he did it, he got suspended 8 games. So second time is like you didn't learn your lesson. You were suspended 8 games. You went to rehab. They sent you to Florida. Memphis told you to do this and that. They basically gave you a warning. Second time, it just to me, I don't know. I feel like he's living a lifestyle that he's not supposed to be living, or he's not accustomed to live, and he's very excited to show off the gun every time he gets on a camera or Instagram live, or he's in a car blasting some music. He always wants to show off the gun, and to me, it just it doesn't go with what you want to be as a basketball player, and risking your pockets, your money, everything. He's just risking everything basically. He wants to get suspended for a good amount of time. He wants to be off the court basically with not pay, and it's just like, hey, even like I'd be said, you can't keep on telling this person who to hang out with or who to pick as friends or not. It's his choice. It's who he decides, and it's him holding the gun. It's him flashing the gun. It's not nobody forcing him to do these stuff. So, but like the league's gonna come down and put the hammer down on them, give him probably like 40, 45, maybe half the season. Get him out there. Not pay him. Yeah, they're gonna put a lot of stuff down, and he's gonna have a big issue. So I feel like it's bad for him.
Yeah, this guy say he's a flat out idiot, right? He's pretty
There's no
like
other way to put it.
there's no other way to put it. This is the second time. I remember when the first time when me and Yahya we said how he went to Florida for 10 days, right? And we were in the group chat talking about like 10 days, like what is that? Like he didn't learn nothing in 10 days. Like, and then people like Abdi were saying, oh no, he's fine, he learned his lesson, this and that. Dude, he was literally there for 10 days. Like he didn't learn nothing. Like let's be real. And then now he did it again. So uh minimum, it's gonna be a minimum half the season. So what is that, 41 games? That's my opinion. It's gonna be a minimum only because he's a high profile player. If this was some regular Joe, like he'd be
He out the league.
No,
He'd be in China.
no, yeah. Just for now, it would probably be a 1 year suspension if it was like some like a regular Joe. But I'm not gonna lie, this guy, he might get OJ mailed soon. Like this guy might be out the league. So if he does it one more time, he's gone. So yeah, I don't know how else to put it. This guy's an idiot, man.
There's no other way you could put it, man. But when I first saw this notification on Sunday morning, I'm just trying to sleep in. It's the weekend. I couldn't believe it when I first read it.
I thought it got ball sacked.
Yeah, exactly. Something going around on Twitter now. You get ball sack sports reporting fake media. I thought Bleacher Report sent out a notification on accident. Because of course this happened before. I'm thinking it was an error on their end. So I go ahead and go on Instagram. I refresh it. The headline is still the same. I go on Twitter. You go on Twitter, you find anything as soon as possible. And I saw the video first thing, and I was like, okay. My initial reaction was like I wasn't necessarily surprised or anything like that, because this is kind of who Ja Morant really is, right? This is a guy who wants to portray a lifestyle that he didn't come from. He didn't come from this, this lifestyle where he was in the trenches, he was in the gutter. He had to work for everything that he's got now. Everything that we've seen on the internet from Ja Morant. He had a loving family, two parent household. Obviously he didn't go to the best college, but he made out of the situation that he was already in, right? As an NBA player, that's all you want to do. You want to provide for your family and get yourself out of a situation that you're already in. And I think Ja Morant wasn't in the worst situation in comparison to other guys in the league that kind of had a stronger come up and a harder come up. And so, this is a second offense now. And I honestly think this might be like a third offense, but this is a second on Ja Morant specifically. I think midway through the season against the Indiana Pacers, he had a couple of guys in the car with him that had a gun on him with like red lasers, and they're pointing it at I think it was the Pacers staff or players or something like that. and one of the boys that he was rolling with got suspended by the Memphis Grizzlies for a full season, so he's not allowed to come into the arena to watch the games. And then obviously the second offense in March, where he was in the strip club with it, and I think it was like in Denver on a road trip, like post game, and then they ended up slapping him with a suspension there. Mini me, you're bringing too light on him. He didn't even spend 10 days in rehab. He spent 2 days, and the next thing you know, he got out and he came out onto the media, spoke with Jalen Rose, and said that, that's not who I want to portray myself as. I'm not that type of person. That's not me. My actions don't define who I am. Blah blah blah, yada yada yada. This, that, and the third. And so everything was smooth. The NBA did make an example out of him by not allowing him to make the All NBA team, and we all know how their season ended. It's all good. I'm not gonna sit here and be one to judge people and their actions in the off season, whether they want to go spend some time with their family, whether they want to be a lab rat and be in the gym all off season, or if they want to go on vacation and have fun, spend time in the club and do all that fun stuff. That's cool. It's the off season for a reason. You're not on the job. You're not on the clock. You do what you want with your own personal time. But at the same time, you do have to understand that the brand you're representing, whenever you're going out there in public, you're representing the NBA as a brand, because obviously, and Nike and all the other endorsements that this guy has under his belt. So you got to go out there and make sure that every step you take is a well-calculated step, and you got to make sure that you're not putting yourself in the worst position possible. Everything you do has to be smart. You got to put your best foot forward and go about your life in that fashion. But Ja Morant, each and every time this guy gets on Instagram Live, or we see videos of him in the strip club on TikToks and all that stuff, he's listening to, obviously the music that he's listening to is influencing him heavy as well. But for some odd reason, this guy just has a very, very strong attachment issue with this gun. And so he just feels the need to flash it on social media to make himself look like a tougher guy. And that's just not who he is. And so I think the best move forward now for the NBA would be to suspend him right now for half the season. It can't be anything less than that, because the NBA have tried to push this guy as the face of the league, or at least one of the faces of the league. And you slipped up once, it's fine. You're young, you're stupid and dumb. It's fine. You can kind of rebuild yourself from that situation. But you make it the same mistake twice, the NBA just can't forgive you for that easily. So they're gonna make an example out of Ja the same way they did with Kyrie Irving. We saw throughout the course of the beginning of the season where Kyrie Irving got pretty much suspended by the Nets, and the NBA Players Association kind of spoke out about it. Jaylen Brown, who's a big representative for them, spoke about it. And so Adam Silver is going to make a huge example out of him, and he's going to miss a lot of time for his ball club, and it's going to hurt the Memphis Grizzlies because this is a guy they rely on. They can't necessarily go to anybody else now for majority of the season while this guy is out, and be a successful basketball team. They can try, but they won't be as good as they are with him in comparison to him without him. So, for Ja Morant to continue to portray this lifestyle that he's not from, it's only going to hurt his career going forward. He has a lot of endorsement deals. I think he has one. He's trying to revive the Powerade, company, and they have a commercial with him. They ended up pulling that ad after the first incident. I'm sure they're not going to campaign with him again. Nike, they just gave him a shoe deal after they just kicked Kyrie to the curb, and now they have another guy on their hands where he's getting into a lot of incidents. And so it's just going to be tough for the NBA to kind of move forward with Ja Morant in this whole situation. And now, all the eyes were on him before, and now it's just even more and more now. Now the microscope's under him, and he's going to be well watched. And every move he makes, if they consider it to be a wrong step, he's out of the league as soon as possible. And so, he's fumbling a lot of bags for him. You would think that a 23-year-old grown man that entered fatherhood extremely early would be much more mature in comparison to the other young guys that haven't necessarily experienced fatherhood. Like this guy's, a lot of people don't bring this up, but this guy's a dad. And so you would think that, once you enter fatherhood, you would have to mature a lot faster in comparison to the guys that are, around your age. But that just hasn't been the case for Ja Morant. And, it's just hilarious to watch, every incident come out on the internet, whether it's, him in the club or him with the gun, and the NBA just having to do what they do by making an example out of him. And so, I think that's where I stand with this whole thing. I'm not necessarily shocked with it. No emotion, no nothing. It's just funny to watch because, Ja Morant being one of the best up and coming stars in this league, and the NBA is trying to push him to be one of the faces, and now he's just fumbling every opportunity that's been being put in front of him. And It's going to be interesting to see what Adam Silver does, with the suspension that's going to be on the way for him, whether it's, half the season, whether it's a minimum 20 or 25 games. But once we'll find out more, of course, we'll be right here to talk about it. But with that being said, any final words before we sign off here, fellas?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and say if this is a 20-25 game suspension, I'm gonna say this league's a joke if it's 20-25 games. And if my good friend David Stern was still alive, this guy would minimum, I'm telling you right now, minimum 1 year suspension if David Stern was alive. But Adam Silver, this guy he's not a respectable what's it called, commissioner. So I don't expect Ja Morant to get anything more than half the season just because Adam Silver is the commissioner. If this was David Stern, this guy would minimum 1 year. Actually, third offense, yeah, I would say minimum 1 year to potentially being out of the league. But that's how I see it.
You got no final
What's the
words?
what's these conference finals, man? Let's have some fun. I know
Yeah,
you
man,
two,
we here,
I know
man.
you two. I know you two got something going on, but let's have some fun.
I'm about to go to war with that guy at top right there for sure.
Just about there's smoke that needs to be settled between you two. And then Abdi has his hands full already with the Boston Celtics. But of course, it's going to be interesting to see how these conference finals shape up. We're getting into the end of the NBA season. NBA finals are going to be right around the corner in a couple of weeks. And so, of course, we'll be right here to talk about it. But before we go ahead and close this episode out, Mini-Mick, I want to thank you for hopping on today's episode. I really appreciate your time. This was long overdue, man. Lifelong Nuggets fan. We've been waiting for you to come on here and talk your shit. But, I'm glad we were able to get this one out of the way. And we're hoping to see you in future episodes.
Yeah, I just want to say you're lucky I wasn't here for the NFL postseason, man. But I had a lot to say about those Vikings, but we'll see on next one.
It's all good. We're gonna bring you back for the NFL season so you can talk about your New York Giants. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and close this episode out here. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. We really appreciate your love and support. We'd greatly appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Media Podcast. And for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, all of our social media handles will be at the end of this video. And if you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, if you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to navigate yourself to all of our social media handles there. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. Mini-Me, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Being out late, now that's overkill.